Jaya Gopi Jana
Vallabha
Giridharadhari
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Vandana
Yamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanohari
Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha
Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe
Jaya Radha
Jai
Radha Madhava
Jai Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Shri Krishna Jai Gaur Nitai ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jaya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naran Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraye
Tato Jayamudiraye
Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavate Ram
Bhagavatyuttama Shloke
Bhagavatam Yuktama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishchike.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishchiti.
So we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 13. I'll share my screen. This is about lotus feet of Krishna. Present. Ekaikashongani dhiyanuභāvayet.
Ekaikasho Nigani Devavet
Padādiyāvadhasitam gadābhrataha.
Padadiyavadashitam Gadavrata
Jitam jitam sthanam apohya dharayet.
Jitam Jitam Sthanam Apyadharayet
Param param shuddhyati dhiryatha yatha.
Param Param Shuddhyati Dhiriyata Yata.
Please chant devotees and we'll repeat after you.
Ekaikasho angani dhiyanuභāvayet.
Ekaikasho Nigani Dhyanubhavet
Padādiyavadhasitam gadāvrataha.
Padādiyavadhasitam gadābrataha.
Jitam jitam sthanam apohya dharayet.
Jitam Jitam Sthanam Apyadharayet
Param param shuddhyati dhira yatha yatha.
Param Param Shuddhyati Dhirita Yatha.
Anyone else?
Ekaikasho Nyagni Dhinyono Bhavet
एकैकशृङ्गानि धियानुभावयेत्
पदादियावत् तशितां गदाभ्रता
पदादियावद्धसितं गदाभृतः
जितं जितं स्थानम् अपयाधरायेत्
जितं जितं स्थानमपोह्य धारयेत्
परां परां शुद्धयति धीरिथा इथा
परं
परं
परं शुद्ध्यति धीर्यथा यथा
एकैकशोनिगनिधिरानुभावयेत्
एकैकशृङ्गानि
एकैकशोनिकानि दिनानुभवेत्
पदाय्यावद्दिशान्तं गदाभृता
पदादियावद्धसितं
पदादियावधशितं गदाव्रता
जितं जितं स्नानम् अपयोदरायेत्
जितं
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 जितं स्थानमपयाधरायेत्
परं परं शुद्ध्यति धीर्यता यथा
परं
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 शुद्ध्यति
शुद्ध्यति
धीर्यथा
धीर्यथा
यथा
यथा
Okay, I don't have word for word in this. Let me go back to database. Escape. Okay, 213. Can you see my screen of database?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Eka ekashaha.
Eka ekashaha.
One to one or one after another.
One to one or one after another.
Angani.
Angani.
Limbs.
Limbs.
Dhiya.
Dhiya.
By attention.
By attention.
Anubhavayet.
Anubhavayet.
Meditate upon.
Meditate upon.
Padadi.
Pada adi.
Legs, etc.
Legs, etc.
Yavat.
Yavat.
Until.
Until.
Hasitam.
Hashitam.
Smiling.
Smiling.
Gadabhritaha.
Gada vrataha.
The personality of Godhead.
The personality of Godhead.
Jitam jitam.
Jitam jitam.
Gradually controlling the mind.
Gradually controlling the mind.
Sthanam.
Thanam.
Place.
Place.
Apohya.
Apohya.
Leaving.
Leaving.
Dharayet.
Dharayet.
Meditate upon.
Meditate upon.
Param param.
Param param.
Higher and higher.
Higher and higher.
Shuddhyati.
Shuddhyati.
Purified.
Purified.
Dhihi.
Dhihi.
Intelligence.
Intelligence.
Yatha yatha.
Yatha yatha.
As much as.
As much as.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to His smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. The process of meditation recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchidananda Vigraha, as described in the scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representations of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, and gradually rising higher and higher up to his smiling face. According to the Bhagavata school, The Lord's rasa dancing is the smiling face of the Lord. Since it is recommended in this verse that one should gradually progress from the lotus feet up to the smiling face, we shall not jump at once to understand the Lord's pastimes in the rasa dance. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulsi to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, we gradually become purified by the archana process. We dress the Lord, bathe him, etc. And all these transcendental activities help us purify our existence. When we reach the higher standard of purification, if we see the smiling face of the Lord or hear the rasa dance pastimes of the Lord, then we can relish his activities. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, the rasa dance pastimes are delineated in the 10th canto, chapters 29 through 34. The more one concentrates on the transcendental form of the Lord, either on the lotus feet, the calves, the thighs, or the chest, the more one becomes purified. In this verse, it is clearly stated, the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present conditioned state of life is impure due to being engaged in sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of meditation is purification of one's intelligence. Those who are too engrossed in sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in archana or to touch the transcendental form of the Radha, Krishna or Vishnu deities. For them, it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord, as recommended in the next verse. The impersonalists and the voidists are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple, because the impersonalists and the voidists are not sufficiently purified in their spiritual activities. Archana is not meant for them. Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is specifically talking about how the meditation process is. The meditation process should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord. So we have to think about why the feet are called lotus feet. Prabhupada, in one of the purports, he explains that lotus is the most beautiful thing in this world. So anything from the Lord's body is compared to the lotus feet, lotus face, lotus hands, like that. And even the spiritual world is shaped like a whirl of a lotus flower. So when the Lord descends to the material world, his abode is also like that. Even Navadvip is shaped like the lotus flower. So his feet, they are very beautiful. That's why they are compared to lotus flower. So there are many descriptions about the Lord's lotus feet in Srimad Bhagavatam. One of them occurs when Maitreya was teaching Vidura. Vidura, when he was in pilgrimage, he actually meets Uddhava. And then he wanted to learn from Uddhava, because the Lord instructed Uddhava before he left the world. So Vidura, he wanted to learn from Uddhava. But because Uddhava was so much younger than Vidura, Vidura was almost like a grandfather to Uddhava. So he didn't want to take the position of a teacher for Vidura. Vidura is also a great devotee. So when the Lord was teaching Uddhava, there was also another sage, Maitreya, who was hearing. Now Uddhava sends Vidura to Maitreya to learn. So Maitreya is instructing about the transcendental science to Vidura. So during that instruction, Maitreya also gives the explanation of the material world. Instead of just jumping into the pastimes of the Lord first, throughout the Bhagavatam, there is this theme of explaining. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Mataji.
I thought someone called me. So throughout the Bhagavatam, there is this theme of explaining how the material creation came about. So even Maitreya goes through the same process. In order to understand the greatness of the Lord, we need to understand how the material creation came about. And then once we understand the greatness of the Lord, then we can look at the pastimes of the Lord in proper consciousness. So here also, Maitreya, he is explaining how the material creation happened. Like first of all, there is Mahatattva, and from Mahatattva, the false ego comes, and all the modes of material nature come, and one by one, the elements are created. So from that, all the presiding deities for different elements, they also are created. And all the presiding deities, after they are created, they offer respects to the Supreme Lord. They offer prayers to the Supreme Lord. So in those prayers, they glorify the lotus feet of the Lord. These prayers are in third canto, chapter 5, starting verse 39. So they glorify that the Lord's lotus feet are like an umbrella for surrendered souls. And this umbrella, it protects the surrendered souls from miseries of material existence. So these sages who are under this shelter, they can throw off all the material miseries. So this is one of the glorifications they have. They compare the Lord's lotus feet to an umbrella. So the most important material misery is rebirth. We have this misery of rebirth. Dying is very painful. We live this life thinking that we are this body, and we get attached to so many things in this life. The kids, the house, and the different identifications we cherish. But then when the death comes, we have to leave everything, and then we have to go into another mother's womb, and that is also very painful. Staying in a place where you cannot move for 9 months can be very, very painful, while the insects within the womb of the mother are biting us. And so many other miseries. When mother eats something spicy, the whole skin will get burned. So this is the biggest misery. Death and rebirth are the biggest miseries. So that is the misery that one can get out of when one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And then once they are liberated from this rebirth, they don't have to come to material existence again. Whereas if a person goes to the heavenly planets through pious activities, they may stay in heavenly planets only as long as their piety is not exhausted. It's like having a bank balance and going on a vacation and spending it. So there is a limit on how long we can stay in heavenly planets. But whereas going back to Godhead by taking shelter of lotus feet of the Lord, it doesn't have any such limitations. We can stay there unlimitedly. We don't have to come back. There is nothing like we are exhausting in that case. And then they later say that Lord is the father of all living entities, And all these living entities, they're always overwhelmed by these three kinds of miseries. What are the three kinds of miseries we have in the material world?
Adhyatmic, Adibhautik, and Adidaivic.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. So Adhyatmika miseries are because of our own body and mind. We have so many miseries because of the body. Like if we eat something that that doesn't go with the body, like wheat. My daughter can't eat wheat so much. So if she eats wheat, then she suffers a lot, like, body aches and head is heavy, all those things. It's because of your own body. Because of our own body, we suffer. And then mind, oh my gosh, mind can be very, very painful sometimes. Mind keeps remembering things that it shouldn't remember. Like if something happens and you want to forget, mind doesn't let you forget it. It keeps reminding you of that, and then doesn't let you focus on things that are very beneficial for us, like spiritual activities. So mind can also give a lot of pain. These are Adhyatmika miseries. And then Adi Bhautika miseries. So those are the miseries offered by other living entities. We may be peacefully engaged in our own business, but then, other living entities, they give suffering to us, like mosquitoes and mice and maybe other human beings. So these things we cannot avoid as long as we are in the material world. We have Adi Bhautika pains also. Excuse me. And then Adi Daivika. Those are the disturbances caused by demigods and other supernatural powers. So like tornadoes and tsunamis and earthquakes, coronavirus, all these things are Adidaivika pains. So there is no happiness in this material world. All these living entities, they are suffering, they are overwhelmed by all these three kinds of miseries. Therefore, we have to take shelter of the shade of the lotus feet of Krishna. So these feet, this lotus feet of Krishna, they are full of knowledge. And that's why we need to take shelter of them. When we take shelter of them, then we can get proper knowledge. That is the mystical happening. After taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, we gain the proper knowledge. And with that proper knowledge, we can be freed from material miseries. They may exist. It's not like material miseries will cease to exist in this world. As long as we are in this world, the miseries will exist. But when we accept the lotus feet of the Lord, we don't identify with those miseries. So the required knowledge and detachment, both of them will come when we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And then they go on to say, that the Lord's lotus feet by themselves, they are shelter of all places of pilgrimage. So if someone wants to go to pilgrimage, they don't have to make any great endeavor for that. Simply by meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, we get the benefit of going to a place of pilgrimage. That's why great clear-minded sages, they always search after the lotus feet of the Lord. At every step, they take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And river Ganga, it also emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord. So even by taking shelter of river Ganga also, one can gain the same benefit as taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Ganga is very powerful. It can deliver one from all sinful reactions. Actually, river Ganga was not very willing to come to the lower planets because people are not completely pious, and when impious people come and take bath in Ganga, then she needs to bear with all the sinful reactions of those people. She needs to clear them, but then she has to hold them. So she was unwilling, but then, later she was assured that there are many great sages who will come and take bath in her also. and they will relieve her of that burden. So these great clear-minded sages, Paramahamsas, they are compared to the royal swans. And these people, they always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. They make their nests in the lotus feet of the Lord. Like King Kulashekar in, what is the scripture's name? I forgot. He prays to the Lord that, pardon me? Mukundamala Stotra, yeah, Mukundamala Stotra. He prays to the Lord that he needs to, like Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam, Adyaiva me Vishatu Manasa Raja Hamsa, Prana Prayana Samaye Kafavata Pittai, Kantavarodana Vidau, Smaranam Kutaste. So, Krishna, let my mind be entangled at your lotus feet, just like swan goes to the bottom of the lotus stem and entangles itself at the stem of the lotus. So in the same way, let my mind be entangled in your lotus feet. And when I'm thinking like that, when my mind is entangled like that, take me, let me leave my body. Let me not wait until I'm old. So when I'm old, then, you know, there's three things in the body, kapha, vata, and pitta. So they're all in imbalance, and the throat is choking up. When someone gets old, their throat chokes up very quickly, and at the time of death especially. And how can I remember you at that time? So better if you take me now instead of make me wait until that long. So he's completely detached from his body. He doesn't want to live for long. He wants to just remember Krishna, Krishna's lotus feet specifically. And he wants to leave his body like that. When he is able to think, that's when he wants to leave his body. So this is the way they think. This is the way they entangle their mind in the lotus feet of the Lord. Even Ambarish Maharaj, he, like when it was described about his activities, the first thing is Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. So the mind can only be controlled when it thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. So mind should be engaged always in thinking about the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the engagement for mind. There are other engagements for other senses, but as far as the mind is concerned, that's what the mind should be doing. So that's about the Paramahamsas. But then there is more description about river Ganga. It is one of the 5 sacred rivers, but it is the most sacred because it comes directly from the lotus feet of the Lord. But then our acharyas, they say even knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is similar to drinking the water of Ganga. So when we read Bhagavad Gita every day, it is also like bathing in Ganga. And the personified deities of different senses, they go on glorifying the lotus feet of the Lord. They say simply by hearing about your lotus feet, simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. So one doesn't even have to start thinking, just hear about the lotus feet. And then both knowledge and detachment will come even just by hearing about it. Then one goes on to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So this hearing has to be done from authoritative sources. So like if we hear from anybody, it doesn't bring about change in the heart. To change the heart, one has to hear from pure devotees. So if the minds of materialistic persons, they are very disturbed. And if a materialistic person talks about the lotus feet of the Lord, there will be some difference by hearing it because of the transcendental content. But the heart will only change if a realized person speaks. So that's why it's important important to think about which source we are hearing from. Okay, So even if a person is very materialistic, by little eagerness to hear, uh, then he can surpass all the other methods. The other methods means people who meditate on impersonal Lord, who are yogis and trying to, merge with the Lord. So those are the other methods which may not result in attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord. But whereas hearing from a proper source may quickly result in attachment for the Lord. And it will also cleanse the heart of all the lusty desires. It will cleanse the heart of all the other desires. When a person is lusty, there is no possibility of gaining any attachment for the Lord, because the attachment is only towards fulfilling one's own desires. It's like, negation of devotion. Once we if the mind is only focused on our own gain, our own lust, then it cannot focus on the Lord. So one has to be cleared of that lust to be able to properly concentrate on the Lord. So that can only come by hearing from bona fide spiritual master. So by regularly hearing, all that is abhadra, all that is inauspicious in our heart will be cleansed. Srimad Bhagavatam is the hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly is the process that we need to follow to be able to get to that stage. And then they go on praying. They say that you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of cosmic manifestation. And therefore, we all take shelter of your lotus feet, because they always award remembrance and courage to the devotees. So this is one more thing that the lotus feet of the Lord will award. Remembrance and courage. So sometimes we may have certain realizations, we may have certain progress, but when a person gets attached to lower things, the realizations kind of disappear. We may not be able to remember even what we realized. We may not be able to remember the reciprocations the Lord may have had with us. But as soon as we focus on the lotus feet of the Lord, we can get everything back. The Lord can make us remember everything. And lotus feet are also the means of courage to the devotees. Whatever a person may be suffering from, whatever maybe a person is afraid of certain miseries, if we focus on the lotus feet of the Lord, we will gain relief from all the fear, and the Lord will give courage to his devotees, like that. And then they go on explaining what kind of people cannot take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So they say persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for temporary body and kinsmen, who are bound by thoughts of mind and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. So the Lord is situated within everyone's body. We all have the super soul in our hearts. So his lotus feet are there in our own body. But if we are conditioned, if we are suffering from this undesirable attachment to this temporary body, to the kinsman, to my thing, then it's like it's covered. Our consciousness to see the lotus feet of the Lord is covered. It's always thinking about how can I, like if a person is very attached to their own face or their own body, their own beauty, then it's very hard to think of someone else as the dearmost, because their own body is the dearmost for them. And that kind of absorption will not happen unless we come out of this bodily conception of life, unless we are not attached to our own body, but we are only attached to Krishna's body. So Krishna is everything. That's when the hearing and chanting, Shravanam and Kirtanam will enter the stage of Smaranam. Only after we give up these ideas of this temporary body. And at the same time, like we may not be attached to our own body, but we maybe are attached to the kinsmen, like, kids. If we have very cute kids, and obviously we will be always thinking of those cute faces. And that will be the biggest object of our attention. That will be the biggest object of our affection and meditation. Then the Lord won't be the biggest object for us. So we have to come to the stage of not being entangled in this undesirable eagerness for body, kinsman, me and mine. Then we'll be able to see the lotus feet of the Lord. And also offensive people, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities. They also cannot see the lotus feet of the Lord. But the lotus feet are seen by pure devotees because their only aim is to transcendentally enjoy your activities. So some people are very offensive to the Lord. Some people say, like, I've had this one encounter where I went to India. I was just initiated, and then one of the acquaintances, they came to visit me. My dad was very excited because he was also very spiritual. So I had this darshan book which has the deities all over.
We can't hear you, Mataji.
Trying to show him, look, think the Lord.
Is it just me?
No, Mataji,
I
I
cannot
think she's
hear either.
We can't hear. I think it's her microphone.
No, I think
Yeah.
she's freezing. She's
Yep.
Yeah, I
frozen.
think she's frozen.
Or she can disconnect and join back again.
Sorry, I got disconnected. So these kind of people, the Mayavadis, they
Sorry,
cannot.
we missed what you said about the relative when you got
Yeah.
initiated.
So yeah, he said, I don't think a stone is the Lord. You all
Wow.
are worshipping. I don't believe in worshipping stones and all that.
This is an Indian person?
Indian, yes. Because Mayavadi people, they don't really think the Lord exists in the deity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just think they will one day become the Lord. Some people just meditate on the impersonal effulgence.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very offensive. So these kind of people, they cannot see the lotus feet of the Lord. And even some yoga practitioners, they also want to merge with the Lord. They don't acknowledge the separate existence of the living entities and separate existence of the Lord. They think everybody is one, and the final realization is when you merge into the Lord. Those people also, they cannot see the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is the greatest offense, to deny the existence of the Lord as separate from the individual souls, and impersonalism. So these two people, they cannot see the lotus feet of the Lord. Nor can they even see the devotees of the Lord. They think devotees are all sentimental. They don't have any proper background. So these are the offenders. They lose chance to even receive mercy from the Lord's devotees. So in that connection, Prabhupada gives an example of the hunter and Narada. So this hunter was a great sinner, but he was not an intentional offender. So he didn't know. He thought that's his profession and he needs to do that. So Narada Muni, he kindly shows his mercy on him, and he immediately uh, becomes rectified, and he rectifies his ways, and he focuses on worshipping the Lord. Whereas Manigriva and Nalakuvara, they are intentional offenders. They know better, but still, because of so much engrossed in materialism, extreme materialism, even when the Narada Muni was when Narada Muni was passing by, they could not come out of their extreme materialism. They could not cover themselves, whereas the other ladies, they covered themselves. But Manigriva and Nalakuvara, they could not even cover themselves. So this is because of extreme materialism. When people are so engrossed in just enjoying the objects of senses, they cannot see the devotees of the Lord. Their internal vision is killed. So that was very offensive, and they had to go through the tree life, the life in which they can't do anything but stand there naked. And then eventually they got the mercy of the Lord himself, but they had to go through that punishment, whereas the hunter didn't have to, because he was not an intentional offender. So this is what the personified deities of the different senses explain. And also in Canto 4, there is a lot of description about the Lord's lotus feet in the context of Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj, he gave this celebrated speech to all the residents of his kingdom. So he was explaining to the members of the society that, you all have to engage in your duties properly. And you all have to engage in Varna and Ashrama properly. I have to teach you how to engage properly, and I have to teach you how to meditate on the Supreme Lord while you do so. If I don't teach and just take the taxes, then I'm liable to suffer the impious activities that you perform. So it is the duty of the king to teach. So he's telling them how they should execute, how they should meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that context, he tells that by the inclination to serve the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, suffering humanity can immediately cleanse the dirt which is accumulated in the minds from innumerable births. So we accumulate these tendencies, this dirt, from so many lifetimes, and it is very, very hard to get out of those. So these are the tendencies. This is the dirt that will give us another life. But we are so foolish that we take shelter of that dirt again in this life, and then that will create again another life. So this birth and rebirth, they continue as long as we can cleanse the dirt from the mind. They continue. So like the Ganges water which emanates from the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, this process of serving the lotus feet of the Lord, this immediately cleanses the mind. Doesn't even take too long to cleanse the mind by meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. And he's explaining all these to the citizens. And when a devotee takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he'll also be cleansed of misunderstanding of mental speculation. Like we were discussing about my other relative. All these Mayavadis, they do a lot of word jugglery and mental speculation. And all those things will also be cleansed somehow or the other if they have a little faith in the lotus feet of the Lord, and if they start to meditate, they'll be cleansed of all those also. And then renunciation will also come. So that is the root. The lotus feet of the Lord are the root. And by taking hold of that root, we never have to come back into this material world. And that's why he's encouraging, Prithu Maharaj is encouraging his citizens to always engage your minds, your words, and your bodies, and the results of your occupational duties at the lotus feet of the Lord. Whatever occupation you are situated in, you should engage in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord with full confidence and without any reservation. then you will be surely successful in your objectives in your life. And then he goes on explaining about the glories of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Serving devotees is also a limb of Pada Sevanam. Pada Sevanam is serving the lotus feet, which is one of the processes out of the 9 processes of devotional service. Pada Sevanam is one of the processes. Because devotees are situated at the feet of the Lord, serving devotees is also serving the feet of the Lord. It is very important to serve the devotees, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So he goes on explaining how Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are even higher than the kingly class, because his own father Vena was so cruel, and Brahmanas had the potency to just kill him with their own words, and Brahmanas have the potency to elevate somebody spiritually from whatever position they are in, just like Narada Muni elevated this hunter from his position. So he's begging the blessings of all of the citizens to perpetually carry on his crown the dust of the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas until the end of his life. So his faith is so strong in the dust of the feet of Vaishnavas. He wanted to carry it until the end of his life and always. So because of that, he could get relieved from all the reactions of sinful life. So being a king is not very easy, because they are responsible for any activities, any sinful activities that the citizens may perform. And they have to be constantly educating the citizens, one thing, and they have to take care of the accumulated sins by constantly taking shelter of Vaishnavas. So he preaches to them like that, and they are very happy after he finishes his speech. They also reciprocate. They say, today you opened our eyes and revealed us how to cross to the other side of the ocean of darkness. And you told us how to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord and how to take shelter of Brahminical culture. So we are very thankful like that. And when this is going on, the Kumaras also appear on the scene. And Prithu Maharaj receives the Kumaras very well. He washes his feet, washes their feet, and gives them a nice seat and properly respects them. After that, Sanat Kumara, one of the Kumaras, he also instructs Prithu Maharaj. In those instructions also, he mentions a little bit about the lotus feet of the Lord. We probably don't have time for that, so I'll stop here. Anybody has any questions or comments? I hope I was audible, and I hope my connection was okay.
You were. I missed the first 10 minutes of the lecture since I was in another Zoom call. The taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Who is speaking that at the beginning of this verse?
This verse is Shukadeva Goswami is speaking. It's from chapter 2 of Canto 2. He just started speaking. You know, the first, the whole canto is just the prelude to Bhagavatam, and then second canto is when Shukadeva Goswami starts speaking. This is second chapter, Lord in the Heart. He's describing the process of meditation. And in this verse, he's describing that the meditation should start from the lotus feet of the Lord.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
I also missed some of your class, but what I heard was very wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
About
Your
the-
voice is a little low. Maybe I should increase my volume.
I'll turn up the volume. Oh, I also heard about the lotus flower. You know, we hear Krishna's lotus feet. That lotus is also untouched by water.
Yes.
untouched by the three modes and nature.
Mhm.
And the lotus is also ever expanding bliss. And the lotus flower also emits or gives a special kind of nectar that is
Ah,
itself.
wow.
So there's many, and I'm sure there's many more, jewels about the lotus flower that can be discovered.
Mm. Yeah, very nice points, Mataji. Especially the one which says it gives a special kind of nectar, which is very nice comparison for Lord's lotus feet, because the Lord's feet will give that special kind of nectar, which you'll get addicted to and you won't find it anywhere else. Thank you, Mataji.
But I thought you said something a little contradictory, though. You said that if you're attached to the bodily concept of life, you cannot understand the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. But at the same time, you said if you have a little faith, you can
Begin.
start feeling the shelter. So it's kind of
Yes. Yeah.
confused by that.
Yes. So if you have a little faith, you can begin the process, and eventually you'll be
Feel
cleansed
it.
of all the attachments. Then you can experience the real nectar.
Mhm.
So we can't begin without any faith, but little faith can begin us with the process, and the process, as potent as it is, can cleanse us of all the contaminations that we may have.
But at the same time, if you hold on to the bodily concept of life, you will not feel it, you're saying.
Yes, yes. Yeah, as long as we hold on to this bodily conception of life, the real nectar, we cannot feel the real nectar. We may feel little bit here and there by the mercy of the Lord, but it won't be continuous. We can't come to the platform of Nishtha unless we cleanse all the anarthas. Only after the anartha nivritti is completely done, we can come to the platform of Nishtha. That's when the feeling, the bliss will be continuous after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Anything else anyone would like to share? Your realizations about the lotus feet of the Lord?
How would you compare taking shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord?
Because spiritual master is always at the lotus feet of the Lord. Taking shelter of spiritual master's feet is the same
He's taking shelter
as taking shelter of the lotus feet of the
of the
Lord.
Lord.
Yeah, that's why Prabhupada has two meanings, right? One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord, or whose feet all the Prabhus take shelter. At whose feet all the Prabhus take shelter.
I see.
Yeah. So that's the easiest for us, right? Unless we are completely purified, we may not get that nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord. But spiritual master, because he's so kind, like Narada Muni was
Yes,
so
and more
kind.
accessible, yeah.
Yes, we can take shelter of the lotus feet of spiritual master, and he gives that same taste that he has. In one of the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam, it was mentioned that a disciple, he should not care to live after the spiritual master leaves his body. He should continuously serve the spiritual master until he's physically present. And if he leaves, then the devotee also has to live with him, unless he will execute the mission of the spiritual master in this world. And when the spiritual master retires also, and when the spiritual master enters into these Radha Krishna pastimes, if the disciple, a sincere disciple who's completely surrendered, if he wishes to be with the spiritual master, although the disciple may not be so qualified, he can engage alongside of his spiritual master, like as a servant of his spiritual master, in the same service as the spiritual master is doing. So, we may not be so qualified, but because the spiritual master is so qualified, we can enter into those nectarian pastimes and serve the Lord in a way the spiritual master is serving. So it's very important to serve the spiritual master with all our heart. Any other realizations? I see a lot of devotees today. I'm
Hare
sure
Krishna,
Amritakili Mataji will have a lot of realizations about taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I just would like to share what I heard in Amarendra Prabhu's class, especially when we take darshan of deities, whether in home or in the temple. Our eyes, when we start taking darshan, our first darshan is lotus feet, and then you move up, waist, body, flute, eyes. So I think even that is, I think the feet first, feet comes first when we take the darshan. That's how our mood should be. So that's what I heard in Amarendra Prabhu's class.
Yes, very nice, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing this point up. Yeah, I was discussing with Sugopi yesterday, and she was telling, whenever she used to go to the temple, she used to look at the face of the Lord. She didn't know about the feet, and then she learned this, and after that, she started looking at the feet first, and then go up gradually. So yeah, we all have to learn this, and also there is a reason for this, because generally the servants, they are at the feet. Even in Christian philosophy, it is said that one can kiss the master at the feet, as a servant. And if their rasa is higher, then they can kiss at the hand as a friend, on the lips as a lover. But as a servant, you always start with the feet. And even in our philosophy, we have various rasas. For every rasa, there is a portion of servitude in it. And becoming a servant is the foundational principle of having relationship with Krishna. We need to cultivate that mood of being a servant. And that starts with meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. Even gopis start with meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. Thank you, Prabhu. That was a nice point.
Yes, I believe when you submit to someone, you fall at their feet. And when we're paying obeisances, as you rise, the first thing you should see is the lotus feet of the Lord. So we should always be in the mood of offering respects and humility, when we approach the Lord.
Yes. That's nice. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. It's a very practical process on how to develop our consciousness. And we have this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives all the subtle principles on how to advance. Very nice. Anyone else? Okay, it's 9:01. If nothing else, we'll stop here. Thank you so much for all of your association. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Vaishnava ki jai.
अनंत कोटि
Srimad
वैष्णव
Bhagavatam ki
की जय।
jai.